Hey, thanks for joining. Please be sure to hit the like button if you're listening to this. Hit the like button. Send it, share it with someone that you think may find it interesting. Also, trigger warning, total trigger warning. If you are not at the place or do not desire to hear or learn about any situation that has disturbing details in it, then this is not the stream for you. This is not the video for you. It'd be better for you to move on. But if you are ready, if you're interested, if you want to learn more, then continue watching. So, just to get right into it, I saw this story go viral earlier this week of this lovely lady who had a horrible, horrible situation with her now ex boyfriend, who at the end of the day was basically force feeding her abortion pills without her knowing it. Needless to say, it is it's just a bad situation overall. The details are pretty grimy, but I wanted to cover it off because I think there's a few lessons that we can glean from this, and just some important lessons to consider in general. So, just to get right into the tweets, I'm going to read some of the tweets that she shared regarding this whole situation. It starts off here by saying, I want to tell whomever will listen about what my ex did to me and our child throughout my pregnancy. This family that we were creating was one he stressed he wanted so bad after his initial reservations. I had given this man so many chances to leave and constantly asked him to do so if that was what he chose, and he never did, forcing my child and I to suffer the consequences. So, real quick, this is one thing that I would say, just in general. I think if a man really is truly interested in committing to you and truly interested in a family, he's probably going to want to marry you. He's probably going to want you to be his wife. Um, Not everybody will agree with this, but I think that's one way I think of verifying. Marry before you carry. I could not stress that enough. And again, if a man is talking about, oh, I want to start and create a family with you, I want to do this, and that, but it's not talking about marriage, or there's no indication that he sees you as a long timer, really, red flag. But I mean, sometimes we're not taught these things as young women, so we just don't know. Anyways, it says there may be many triggers in this thread. Yeah, so she talks about there being triggers, yada yada. It says to start off, my boyfriend at the time inserted 2 abortion pills in my vagina under the disguise of oral and digital sex the morning of February 12th, 2022, when I was 17 weeks pregnant. At the time he inserted the pills, I was unaware as he covered my stomach completely with my comforter and made sure it was extremely dark in my room. He asked if he could blindfold me to spice up the sex, but I said no because I was uninterested. I immediately began to experience what I later found out was side effects of the drug misoprostol. I'm probably butchering that. A pill that doctors give to women under supervision to assist in abortion or labor. As he lay next to me in bed after he had inserted the pills, I began to have chills, then extremely terrible cramps that then led to diarrhea and later the leaking of my water. I had assumed at the time that I was experiencing food poisoning. Says the night before he had taken me to a Korean steakhouse for dinner. I assumed that the meat I made for us did not agree with me. I called my own OBGYNs constantly that day. They had agreed that it very well could have been food poisoning. As this man lay next to me, he watched me experience what was later confirmed by my doctors to be contractions. He knew exactly what he had done and why I was experiencing what I was experiencing, and watched me sit in pain and confusion. He told me then that we should try to get rest. As my fever began to spike, he went to sleep or pretended to. I took Tylenol as instructed by my doctor and was able to finally get some rest. When I woke, I noticed he was awake and alert next to me. He told me that his parents had told his sisters they wanted him to go back home for the past 2 weeks at the time he had been living with me. He told me and my family that he had told his parents I was pregnant and they had kicked him out as our cultures did not necessarily align. He is Middle Eastern Pakistani to be exact. This was one of the reasons I was told I nor our child would be accepted in his culture. Wow, telling. I'll continue reading, then I'll interject. It says, for some reason in my gut, I didn't believe he truly told them. After he told me what I felt was a lie, I asked him to pack all his things and leave my home immediately. He began to protest and asked if I was kicking him out. I simply stated that I didn't believe he ever told his family. Let's see. Oops. Oops, guys. Okay, give me 1 sec. Let me go back. Looks like it's timing me out. Okay. Because the truth about our relationship or our pregnancy, and I was too tired to deal with this that day, yada yada. Says he began to linger and said he wanted to come back. He sat on the floor, began crying, but acknowledged that he in fact never told his parents the truth. I later realized he only wanted to come back to make sure he was successful in terminating my pregnancy. Yikes. God, this is horrible. Okay. In 2 weeks he lived with me, he got so close to a large part of my tight knit community. I didn't know at the time, but this tactic was used to suspicion would never point to him. He never expected that the misoprostol, I probably butchered that, would not dissolve, leaving the only culprit to be him. He finally collected all his things and prepared to leave. The last thing he said to my face was that he loved me and the baby so, so much. Around 8 p.m., I called him and told him I was no longer interested in being with him. I felt as though he was coward and I was not going to tolerate any more lies. I had broken up with him, told him we were done, and the only thing he kept asking me was, "Well, how are you feeling now?" over and over again. I couldn't understand why, because at the time, for some reason, I felt a bit better. I had rested and thought that the food poisoning began to subside for the most part, and didn't mention still feeling ill to him once. I later realized it was because he wanted to see if I had miscarried yet. Right after I got off the phone, I began to feel more gushes of water leave my body. I had a few tiny leaks a few hours prior, but was told by the OBGYN it would be natural from diarrhea pushing my body to push discharge out. I was worried, so I rushed to the bathroom and wiped. After looking at the tissue, I saw one hexagonal pill. I was unsure of what was happening, so I wiped again. Now that napkin, there was another pill. I kept wiping but found nothing else. My sister came into my bathroom, looked and asked me what it was. At the time, I was in so much shock, I couldn't fathom the reality of what I was seeing. I immediately asked for her phone and searched for images of abortion pills that could be inserted vaginally and saw that they were the exact same shape as the two that came out of me. At that time, I had never felt such pain and shock in my life. I knew in that moment he had put those pills in my body that morning under the disguise of sex. I called my OBGYN once again and disclosed what I had found. She told me immediately to come into labor and delivery. As I rushed to the hospital, I couldn't cry or focus on the reality of the betrayal and pain I felt. I did everything I could to calm myself so my baby wouldn't feel my distress. I couldn't come to terms with actually losing what I had wanted so bad. I prayed. I pleaded with God in hopes that in some miracle my child would be saved. We arrived at the hospital with the two pills I had found concealed in a Ziploc bag for the doctors to look at. My doctor did a speculum test on me to confirm whether or not the gushes of water were in fact amniotic fluid. She immediately confirmed it was, and that because of the prognosis of my pregnancy was not good at all because of how early on I was. Those are the images that she has. Guys, that's so deep. And then, those are some of the different responses. That is the end of that thread. If you continue going on, there is another thread where she explains more and more. Just make a long story short, because there's plenty of more threads. Because of the forced abortion pills and because it was so early on, it severely damaged the baby. It severely damaged the baby girl, and the baby stopped, it wasn't growing right, and then there was just more and more medical issues, and she was becoming at risk, and it just got to the point at the end of the day, she kind of went into a forced labor. Unfortunately, her child did not survive. Like I said, there were too many things. There were too many negative impacts that happened to the baby as a result of the abortion pills. She went into a 17-hour labor, delivered the baby, but unfortunately, the baby didn't make it. And here we are. And the crazy thing about it, if you continue to read the story, is that, you come to find out that her ex-boyfriend's sister was, worked at a pharmaceutical company and had access to all kinds of abortion pills. She tends to think that they were conspiring together to try to get rid of the baby, and he is still walking free. So it is, like I said, it is an utter mess. Here's actually a picture So here's a picture of a situation. It says, "I think she's lying," referring this is referring to the sister of her ex-boyfriend. "She was with her brother a week ago, and I'm guessing her parents are sitting in the back. If he was supposedly kicked out, why are they all together in a car?" So again, when you start, she continues to stay in the story as you she's looking at him and the activity of the family, and things are just not adding up. He says, "Oh, I'm kicked out," but then I think she spoke with her ex-boyfriend's sister, and she's like, "Oh, we kicked him out, we want nothing to do with him," but on social media they're seeing pictures of them together. So it's really all this weird sketchy stuff. And ultimately what happened is, because she went public with this, now it sounds like there's people from their family who are maybe trying to reach out to her, trying to clean up the image. It's messy. It's hard to know if they're like if the family is really fighting, or if they're all covering up for him. It's hard to know. So it is still an investigation. If you want to get the full story, like I said, check out her Twitter. She is posting stuff, it seems like, almost consistently. Let me see, what's her newest that was her newest tweet. Another one here, it says, yeah, and then it says, like, her family had reached out, or her ex-boyfriend's family had reached out and were saying, "Okay, let's try to have a meeting to get together," because she's like, "Hey, basically, y'all, this we don't need to talk about this. He needs to turn himself in. What he did is illegal," and they're trying to see if they can come to terms. So, like I said, again, it is a mess. Now, here's why I thought that this was really, really important to cover off. I mentioned before that I am a big supporter of marry before you carry, for so many different reasons, this being one of them. Unfortunately, there are people out there that have just bad intentions. It is what it is, and that's not to say even once people do marry, some of them have challenges. But when it comes to somebody being committed to you, and somebody saying "I do," and basically committing their life, for lack of a better term, there's more skin in the game when there's a marriage involved. So anytime I talk to a woman, or I talk to somebody who is they're interested in somebody, or they're even dating somebody, you know, I always try to encourage them to be pretty mindful, and to be honest, and look at the situation and say, "Okay, what is this guy actually doing?" Like, because let's just be honest, there are men out there who will blatantly lie, just like there are women out there who will blatantly lie. So people sometimes who are manipulative, people who are like sociopathic, which this guy, I wouldn't be surprised if he's like a narcissist or sociopath or something, because this is crazy. But people who operate like that will just totally completely lie. So you can't necessarily always look at what they say. You have to look at their actions. And if they're saying, "I'm loving you, I love you, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me, you are the love of my life," but you haven't met their parents, which it sounds like she had never met her family. So he's saying all this stuff but didn't bring her around the family. If he's not talking about, committing to you and showing that through action, making plans, doing different things, there isn't a ring on your finger. Like, I think there's just certain basic things where it's like, until these actions are very, very, very clear, he's made it clear that he's committing to you. He's made it very, very, very obvious. You don't have to question your status. You don't have to question whether or not you are a boyfriend, girlfriend, or fiance, or, until that's clear, then it's like you don't need to be considered having no kind of kid with the person, period. And again, and I know, I understand that sometimes women, especially when they're young, we're not taught these things. I think, unfortunately, sometimes if you grew up in a religious setting, you can just hear, "Oh, don't have sex, don't do any of this kind of stuff," and then you're supposed to just randomly get married. And there's no, like, you go from that extreme to don't have sex, and there's no talk about relationship, to sometimes the other extreme where it's just like, "Okay, just have sex with whoever you want to and just be free," and that has other issues. And so I think there really needs to be not only a balance but an honest conversation of, what are the different risks involved, why should you abstain, why should you marry before you carry. And here's one situation: God forbid you get with a dude who only sees you as a side piece, or only sees you as a situation and not a forever, and you create something that is lifelong with him, God forbid. And again, one major way to avoid that is to don't even engage in this kind of activity until you're married. That makes it so simple. That makes it so simple. So simple. So I think that's, I think that's one thing. Secondly, these kinds of situations, it's happening so often. And like, even I think over the last month or two, I've seen so many scenarios of women being conned, just being taken advantage of, women being bamboozled. And this is a reminder, honestly, of why we actually legitimately do need men in our life. This is why we need fathers. This is why we need elders, because you, whether you agree with it or not, we don't live in a culture that practices arranged marriage. That's not really what we do. But I do understand and I can respect to a certain extent when you have the elders and when you have more mature people who are helping to navigate and guide you in this dating and mating market. I could see how it could avoid certain issues. Like, I just wonder if she had any brothers, if she had any male cousins or men in her life that who could honestly look at a dude and fill him out, because it doesn't seem like that. It doesn't seem like she had any men that she trusted, maybe older men, older brothers, a father who she trusted, who she could bring this man home to him and they could fill him out. Because like I said, usually men can tell ease real quick if a dude is running game on a chick. They can just sniff it out. Just kind of like women. How women can honestly usually tell if a woman is trying to run game. So, but when that protection is removed, the protection of a father or just a community in general, or just the men, that, like I said, the natural guardianship protection that men, especially maybe in older men or elders, when that is removed, it makes women so much more vulnerable to these kinds of scenarios. And I'm seeing this over and over and over again, where it's like women going out trying to figure out things by themselves, and they're fair game. It's like they're fair game for these manipulative men. And so that's why I'm saying, you don't necessarily have to agree with arranged marriage, but I'm understanding and I see the value of when you have, like I said, elders or especially men in your life who have your best interest in heart involved in these kinds of scenarios. Because without it, it's like, what are we even half the time we don't even know what we're looking for. We're just moving with our feelings. We're just moving with the fifis. And again, that sometimes it can just make us so vulnerable to really, really unhealthy people. So this is another thing that I noticed in the scenario. And then again, another thing that I took from this is you remember it earlier on in the thread, right? Where she basically was talking about how their cultures did not mix. And I've talked about this before. I've talked about this before where interracial relationship, dating and mating, no issue with it. No issue with it whatsoever. But we have to be honest and we have to be realistic about what that actually means. She's a Black woman. She might be of Africa. I think she might actually be, I think her parents, I don't know, but somewhere in there, I think she might be either from Africa or like first generation or something. But either way, Black woman. He is Middle Eastern. She said Pakistani to be specific. And she straight up said, yeah, our cultures do not mix. They don't mix. So that would be one of those things where I think it would really be interesting to inquire and figure out, okay, well, what does that mean it doesn't mix? Does it mean you marry me and you get disowned? Does that mean you marry me, you lose your inheritance? Does that mean you marry me and your parents aren't going to want to come to birthday parties, weddings? Those are tough conversations. But they're honest conversations because certain cultures in general are incredibly race loyal, and it can get down to the point where if you do marry and step outside of their cultural norms, they will completely disown you. And if that was the kind of situation that they were having, you'd have to really move cautiously and really move slowly, because at that point her ex-boyfriend would have so much to put online for her. He would have, if that was the case. I don't know what it is. I don't know as much about the Pakistani culture, so I don't want to make it up. But if that was the case, and he was put in a situation where he had to choose between this random girl that he's dating and losing his entire family and potentially inheritance and things that come with that, that is a huge decision to make, and most people are not willing to do it. So that's where I'm saying, when it comes to dating or marrying out, Nothing wrong with it. Of course, it can be beautiful to share different cultures. It's just beautiful in general when you find somebody that you really love. But you have got to be honest about what that actually means, in this society, and even in America, with things being so ethnically mixed, that does not necessarily mean that things are always as integrated, or it doesn't mean that people still don't have their prejudices or their discriminatory ideologies. It doesn't mean people still aren't racist. It doesn't mean that does not exist, although there are different ethnicities in the US. So that's what I'm saying. If we fail to address that, if we kind of overlook that or brush it aside, sometimes it can come back to bite us in the butt in just really, really, really unfortunate ways. And that is something that stood out to me. You have to wonder if this entire scenario really is because in his culture, his family was putting pressure on him, being like, you are not to bring home a black wife. You are to bring home a wife from our culture, or you to bring home a wife that fits this criteria. I don't know. One can only guess. But if what she said is right, that him and his sister were in on it, then it would not be surprising at all. And again, I think that is the reality. We can try to make it act like dating or marrying out is just super easy, or interracial relationships are just 100%, there's no issues, or it's better than dating intraracially, which is dating within your own ethnic group. We can act like that's the case, but it's not. There are different complications. There are different things that you have to consider. There can be sometimes strong cultural differences. And again, if that is not addressed, it can be incredibly dangerous. And unfortunately, this is what we see happening in this scenario. Not to mention, the man he's still walking free. He is still walking free. That is the scariest and the saddest thing about this. My hope is that justice is served, but God willing, it is not. He'll do it to somebody else, or if it's not that exact same scenario, he'll do some other bad scenario until he is able to come to grips with his own terms. He's able to come to grips with his own errors and his own wrongdoing. So, my heart goes out to her. It really does. I do hope that justice is served. And there's actually one more thing that I did want to bring up too, just kind of staying on this whole topic of interracial dating. I've seen this trend in, whether you want to call it Black YouTube, Black Twitter, whatever it may be. But anytime somebody who decides to stay, date or marry out, anytime they marry out, it almost seems like people are looking at their past history, and they're looking to determine whether or not they basically hated on their group, they hated on their men or the women or not. You see that. So as I was looking through the thread, I'm going to pull this up real quick, because as I was looking through her thread, I saw one random guy. He pulled out a tweet that she shared. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if it's here. One second. I think I saved it. I think I did. But he pulled out this tweet that she had shared. I don't even know when it was, but he was like, "I don't even feel sorry for you anymore after seeing this." And I kind of saw the same energy with Christian Toby when they were looking at previous tweets, and they're like, "We don't even feel sorry for you anymore." Okay, so I'm gonna pull it up. Okay, so this one right here. I don't know if you can see, but so I retweeted this because here she says, Black men and boys deserve to grow old. This is back in November 2021. I did a little bit of a deep dive into Twitter just to try to get a sense of who she was or what she was into prior to her text thread. So I saw that. But then we see this tweet right here where it says African or European men. It says European, I'm tired of all these basic African boys SMH. Then we see this person right here literally being like, what a surprise. Don't feel bad at all. Not anymore. So, somebody could look at her profile and then just assume, oh, this is divest or whatever, and just kind of brush it off. That does seem questionable. Now I'm curious what the entire thread is, but that does seem questionable for sure. Like being like, I'm tired of all these basic African boys. Yeah, so that definitely is the meaning. But then here it's like, she's saying, yeah, Black men, they deserve to grow old and live and exist. So, when I looked at her profile, it was I didn't see anything. Actually, didn't see that tweet at all. I don't. He probably pulled that. God knows where he pulled that from. But I didn't see anything questionable. I didn't see anything that was so blatantly like, oh, I hate all black people. Or I hate this, and that. But I've noticed anytime somebody who is dating or marrying out, they have a bad scenario. I feel like there's people who are looking to discredit their situation, be like, oh, well, you hated on us or you did this, so you don't. I'm not sorry for you. I don't take that position. I think even if somebody says something negative or has self-hatred or has said things that are bad about their community, I mean, I don't, I'm not one to wish harm on them, and or I don't think that they necessarily deserve to be mistreated. But I will say this, unfortunately, if a person does decide to date and marry out, and they do have a open history of hating on their people group or hating on their men or the women in their ethnic group or in their race, it they become a mark. They become a mark, unfortunately, because it's like if you're now essentially not only you're leaving where you came from, it's kind of like you're burning bridges. It's kind of like if you've ever left a job. I always tell people, if I leave a job, I always try to leave it under the right premise, because you never know if I'm going to encounter, if I'm going to need to go back there again, or if I'm going to need to have a good reputation. You just never know. And trust me, there has been plenty of times where I left one job and then went to another job and come to find out my manager knew my manager at my job, 2 jobs ago, or they used to go to the same school, or they used to work together. Like, I mean, so many times where I come to find out that somebody I'm working under or working with ended up being deeply connected with a previous job I was at. And so it's like word gets around, your reputation gets around. But if you burn those bridges and you kind of create this bad reputation, if you end up finding yourself in a bad scenario, then there's no one there to vouch for you because you've already burned those bridges. So it's the same thing, I think, when it comes to dating and marrying out. Like, if you have openly essentially put your middle finger up to the community you come from and say, F you, I don't like you, or these men are trash, or these women are this, and that. If you do that, then unfortunately, again, that is going to make you a mark. That's going to make you more vulnerable. And God forbid, something does happen to you, it's going to be harder for you to garner support from the people that you came from, that you divested from, or that you left, if that makes sense. So this is, again, something that I've just noticed time and time again. For her scenario in particular, I didn't see anything too crazy. Like, most people were just like, this is horrible. We're so sorry this happened to you, and we hope you do better. This, like I said, that one tweet, I honestly, it is questionable and it does seem weird, but I didn't see anything else in her profile that would make me to believe that she is a hardcore, I hate all black people, I hate all black women, all black men, or anything like that. I didn't get that sense. That is a questionable tweet. It is a questionable tweet, but like I said, we also have this tweet here where she's like, they deserve to grow old. So I don't know, it's all speculation at this point, but what I will say is this: she absolutely did not deserve what happened to her. And it's really sad. It's really sad. And that's what I'm saying. I think at the end of the day, there were a few lessons that, a few things we could glean from this. Again, why women should marry before they carry. Absolutely, they should do that. Like, don't even consider it. Also, I'm seeing personally, again, why really men are important. Men are treated like they're such disposable, or like they're commodities. Like, they don't have really any value other than their ability to make money, or their ability to produce money for a woman. And that's not true. When men are removed from the situation in the home, we see it. We see it, and sometimes in subtle and sometimes blatant ways. And I think this is one example of a girl, unfortunately, who knows what her relationship with her family was like, if she had a father, if she had strong men in her life that she could depend on, or even trust in, or even wanted to trust in, for that matter, or even wanted to listen to. Because if she did, I bet you they would have told her, like, nah, he's playing you. He's playing you, sis, or no, he's playing you, daughter. Like, I bet you they would have done that. Now, if she doesn't want to listen to them, then that would have been on her. But to me, these kinds of scenarios, to me, again, I'm just speculating, but they seem like scenarios where it's a woman who is without a strong male leadership, or a strong male in her life to kind of to show her things that women can sometimes miss. So it shows that. And then it also shows me that again, going back to interracial dating, it can be done, and it can be beautiful, but you have to really be honest and realistic about what that means. And far too often it's painted as this fairy tale, everything is easy, everything's so cute, you just divest and your life is going to be better. And it doesn't always prepare women for the realities of what it does mean to date and maybe even marry cross culturally. And without that preparation, that can sometimes lead to really damaging and fatal situations. And we see that time and time and time and time again. I don't know if it's just because social media, maybe things are being more broadcasted now, but to me, it just seems like every week or every other week, I'm hearing of another divestiture disaster where it's just a person decided to marry out and it ended up horribly. And again, this isn't to say this only happens in interracial. Of course, there is a lot of challenges that can even happen when somebody dates in their in their race, right? Like if you choose a dirty, disgusting person, you choose a dirty, disgusting person, period. It don't matter their race. But I'm just saying there are unique challenges to marrying out or to dating out. And I think it's just, in order for a person to be prepared, they should just be aware of it. That's it. And then probably know the right questions to ask, know what to look out for. And if we kind of just brush certain things under the rug or just overlook red flags or don't probe or don't look into certain things, it unfortunately can be a big problem. So, those are a few things that I took away from it. Anyways, thank you guys for listening in. Let me know what you think of this whole situation. Be sure to leave your thoughts down in the comment section. Share it if you found it interesting. And yeah, tune in for upcoming lives, upcoming videos. Be sure to hit the notification button and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll talk later. Bye.